Have you ever noticed how the loudest defenders of freedom are often the first to take it away? George Orwell warned us about this decades ago in his novel 1984. It wasn't just a story about a dictatorship. It was a warning about how truth, freedom, and even our own thoughts could be twisted by those in power. And what's chilling is how much of what Orwell described we can see reflected in the world today. At its core, 1984 tells the story of Winston Smith, an ordinary man trying to survive in a society where the government, known only as the party, controls everything. The party watches you through telescreens, dictates your beliefs, rewrites history, and punishes not just your actions, but even your thoughts. The scariest part? Most people go along with it. They chant slogans, scream at the party's enemies, and learn to love their oppressors. One of the most disturbing themes in Orwell's work is the way the party uses projection. They constantly accuse their enemies of doing the very things they themselves are guilty of. They say their opponents spread lies, while the party itself manufactures falsehoods every day. They claim others are violent, while they are the ones torturing, killing, and waging endless wars. This is not just fiction. Totalitarian regimes throughout history, from Stalin's purges to modern authoritarian movements, have used this exact tactic. It's a psychological trick, a kind of narcissistic trait. By accusing your opponents of your own sins, you deflect attention, confuse the public, and make it nearly impossible for ordinary people to tell who's telling the truth. When everyone is accusing everyone else, the party always wins, because it controls the narrative. Think about modern politics. In the United States, the MAGA movement often accuses its opponents of rigging elections, while itself working to suppress votes, redraw districts, and undermine confidence in the electoral process. In the United Kingdom, the Reform Party rails against supposed corruption and elitism, while being led by figures deeply tied to financial and political elites. This is pure Orwellian projection. Accuse others of the thing you are doing so that when critics point it out, the public throws up their hands and says, "Everyone's corrupt, everyone lies, nothing can be trusted." And when trust collapses, the only constant left is loyalty to the leader. Now let's talk about free speech. Totalitarian regimes love to weaponize the idea of free speech, but not in the way you might think. They use it as a dog whistle, a coded signal. They cry out that their speech is being silenced whenever they are criticized. They claim to be defending freedom of expression when in fact they are pushing harmful narratives designed to divide society. And here's the trick. They present themselves as the true champions of free speech while simultaneously working to silence the voices of opponents, minorities, and experts. We see this clearly today. Politicians argue that cancel culture is destroying free expression, but what they often mean is that they want the freedom to attack, to spread lies, and to target vulnerable groups without facing consequences. In Orwell's terms, this is doublethink, holding two contradictory ideas at once and treating both as true. I'm defending free speech while working to take it away. The party in 1984 constantly redefines language to control thought. They create newspeak, a stripped-down version of English designed to make dissent literally unthinkable. In our world, redefining free speech has the same effect. If free speech comes to mean the powerful get to say whatever they want without challenge, then the very principle of free expression has been hollowed out and turned against us. Now, let's break down another tactic that can be harder to spot: using laws that claim to protect people from harm as tools of control. This is important, so let me explain it plainly. Here's how it works. Step 1. A government or political movement says, "We're passing this law to protect the public." Maybe they say it's to protect children, or to protect women, or to protect religious freedom. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. Step 2. Once the law is in place, the government uses it not just to protect people, but to target whole groups. For example, laws supposedly designed to protect children are used to restrict books in schools, ban discussions about certain communities, or silence teachers. Laws supposedly protecting religious freedom are used to allow discrimination against people who don't share those beliefs. Laws supposedly protecting national security are used to spy on citizens, censor journalists, or criminalize dissent. The key point is that the law looks protective, but in practice, it becomes a weapon. Instead of shielding the vulnerable, it punishes them. This is a classic Orwellian tactic, Redefine harm, redefine protection, and suddenly oppression feels like safety. Remember the party's slogan: freedom is slavery. This isn't just theory. History is filled with examples. In Nazi Germany, laws were passed under the guise of protecting the German people. In reality, they stripped Jews and other minorities of their rights. In Stalin's Soviet Union, laws were passed to protect the revolution from enemies of the people. But those laws were used to justify purges, executions, and imprisonment of innocent citizens. The language of protection hides the reality of persecution. Now look at the present. In the United States, some politicians call for laws to protect children from harmful ideas. But those laws often end up targeting LGBTQ communities, erasing their existence from schools and public life. In the United Kingdom, the Reform Party talks about protecting the British people from threats, but the language quickly becomes a cover for anti-immigrant policies, scapegoating entire groups as dangerous or unworthy of belonging. This is exactly what Orwell warned us about. And here's why it's so dangerous. When people hear that a law is designed to protect them, they are more likely to support it without asking questions. Who doesn't want to be protected? Who doesn't want safety? But if you don't look closely, you might not realize that the law is being used not to shield you, but to control you. This is the brilliance and the evil of Orwell's vision. He understood that totalitarianism doesn't always come wearing a uniform or marching in with tanks. Sometimes it comes disguised as protection, safety, even freedom. And once it takes hold, it's incredibly hard to resist, because ordinary people have been convinced it's for their own good. Let's return to 1984. The party doesn't just rule through fear, it rules through love, or at least the appearance of love. Citizens are taught to believe that Big Brother cares for them, protects them, keeps them safe. Winston Smith's greatest act of rebellion is to love another person, Julia, in a world where love is forbidden. But in the end, even that is crushed. After torture and brainwashing, Winston betrays Julia, and he learns to love Big Brother. That's the true horror. Not just the loss of freedom, but the loss of the ability to even imagine freedom. So when we see modern politicians accusing their enemies of what they themselves are guilty of, when we hear free speech used as a shield for hate, when we see protective laws turned into weapons against vulnerable groups, we should remember Orwell's warning. These aren't random political strategies. They're the building blocks of control. The real battlefield isn't out there. It's inside our own minds. If we can be convinced that lies are truth, that protection is persecution, that free speech means silencing others, then we've already lost. Orwell wrote 1984 not to predict the future, but to warn us. If we don't defend truth, if we don't question power, if we don't protect the meaning of freedom, we will surrender it without even realizing what we've done. And here's the unsettling reality. We don't have telescreens in every room. We don't have thought police kicking down doors. But we do have something just as powerful. Algorithms that shape what we see. Leaders who tell us only they can be trusted. And movements that thrive on outrage, division, and fear. We are not living in Orwell's nightmare, but we're closer than we might like to admit. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: will we learn from Orwell's warning? Will we see through the projection, the doublethink, the manipulation of language? Or will we, like Winston Smith, learn to love Big Brother in the end? If this deep dive into Orwell's 1984 and its relevance to today made you think, hit the like button and subscribe for more daily videos that challenge the way you see the world. Because the battle for truth isn't just in books or in history. It's happening right now, and the more we understand it, the better chance we have of resisting it.